Week 14 quarterback sleepers. So if you're in desperate need of someone who could produce, here's a couple quarterbacks that I think can this week if you're in a real deep league or whatever the deal is. The first guy, Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. We saw Jalen Hurts make his debut last week for the Eagles, and then he was named starter this week, and we'll see what he could do. Last week he looked all right in that second half of action when he came in as Hurts versus the Green Bay Packers, where he had 109 yards, a passing touchdown and 5 carries for 29 yards. Now he's got New Orleans here in Week 14. New Orleans gives up the 6th least amount of fantasy points to quarterbacks, but Hurts in this game, I think he's going to throw a lot. This guy, he could easily get you 4 or 5 points on the ground with his running abilities and the rushing attempts. And I think this Eagle team, they might rally around him here and have a decent ball game. This guy, he could bring energy. You know, he's a good player. In college, he was second runner-up in the Heisman Trophy winner last year. So I think Hurts could have a good game, and wouldn't be surprised and could see him get 20 to 25 fantasy points versus New Orleans, because I think he's going to have to throw the ball 35-40 times in this game. And I think Hurts, he's a good sleeper for this week. The second quarterback as a sleeper this week is Alex Smith of the Washington football team. Alex Smith, he's been pretty good since he got inserted into the starting lineup after Kyle Allen went down with an injury. And last week in a tough matchup at Pittsburgh, Smith, he did have 17.8 fantasy points, 296 yards and a touchdown. This week he versus San Francisco, but the ball game's indoors in Arizona, which is a good thing. And Smith, he's versing the team that drafted him years back when he was the first pick overall in that draft. And I think Smith, he could have a good ball game here. I think he could get 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. And this Washington team, they're playing good. San Francisco, they're still in the hunt kind of, but I think Washington's going to play well. And I see Alex Smith having a big ball game in this one, from anywhere from 20 to 22 fantasy points. And the third and final quarterback I'm looking at as a sleeper this week's Andy Dalton of the Dallas Cowboys. Dalton versus his former team this week, and he goes back to Cincinnati. I'm sure it'll be emotional. I'm sure fans will appreciate it, because Dalton, he was a pretty good quarterback over there in Cincinnati for the years he was there. But now this week he's on Dallas, obviously, and the matchup's pretty good. Cincinnati gives up the 15th most fantasy points to quarterbacks, and Dalton, he's been decent since he came back from injury in Week 11 versus Minnesota. In Week 11, he had 25 fantasy points with 203 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then Week 12 versus Washington, 215 yards, a passing touchdown and an And even last week versus Baltimore, he did have 21 fantasy points, 285 yards, 2 touchdowns and an So this week versus Cincinnati, his former team, I think he could have similar numbers as Dalton like he did versus Baltimore. Garbage time or not, he's still going to throw the ball a lot. He's still got good weapons around him with Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, and Elliott. So Dalton, I think he's a good start this week versus former team, and that's a few quarterbacks I have as sleepers this week going into Week 14.